Okay, so I'm going to skip that, and then last example is this company called Gramener, okay, which makes very in one of those only companies, I would say very few companies in India that actually does data visualization exclusively. I mean, that's their business. Okay, many companies will do many things on also data visualization. This company focuses entirely on data visualization, and besides their commercial work, they also do some interesting side projects, right? And this is one of their side projects. They have also done interesting visualizations on Mahabharata, cricket visualizations they have done a lot, because I think there are a few of them in the company which are cricket fans, so they take cricket data and do some visualization. And whenever they come across some interesting data set, they make some interesting visualization. Now, this is a visualization that is done on Excel spreadsheet. Okay, you know how to encode color in cells, right? Like for example, percentage of something can indicate the saturation level in a cell, right? That's very simple formula to do that. So with that, with just very simple Excel tool, they produced a fantastic and a powerful visualization. Okay, and this is a visualization. So they had data set of US birthdays, Indian birthdays for a cohort. Okay, cohort means some batch of kids born in a particular year, and then the Indian performance in schools for a cohort of students, right? So in their final school leaving examination, like the +2 CBSE or whatever, right? So this data is available to us. I myself have several GB of CBSE data with me. If anybody wants to do some interesting project with me, you can ask me. I can give you that data. So now the US data, when it was plotted, purely based on how many kids, how many babies are born on a specific date, right? In a year, this is how the pattern falls. You can see that the lighter ones are less number of babies, the darker ones are more number of babies, right? So the months July, August, September are the darkest, right? Meaning that more babies are born. But there are some interesting gaps that you see. Okay, it seems that nobody is born on the 1st of November or the 2nd of November. Nobody is born or during Thanksgiving or Christmas, long weekends. 13th of any month seems to be not a very popular day to be born. And Independence Day weekend, April Fool's Day, again not very popular. But Valentine's Day and then St. Patrick's Day are popular despite the rest of the days in that month. Okay, so what explains that? Can you make some hypothesis out of this?
People plan in advance.
Plan in advance, right? So that's one of the hypotheses. Most birthdays are July, September, roughly 9 months after the winter holidays. Okay, so winter holidays, you're kind of cooped up, mostly at home, so more chances of reproduction and so on, I guess, right? And what about the gaps? Most either surgical or even elective, for example, right? Babies can be induced to be born earlier than they are due, right? And there is also this idea of priming the mother to deliver on a certain date. Okay, so there is this idea in maternity that the doctor can actually put a date in the mother's mind, right, at the time of the first consultation, that the body will kind of adjust itself to. Okay, so if the doctor based on the dates that she looks at and then figures out that it's going to fall during the Christmas holidays, she can actually tell the mother that you're going to deliver on the 21st of December. Okay, and sure enough, the mother will deliver on the 21st of December. So this is what is called as priming the body. So the body, because the mother is thinking about 21st, right, and then she will deliver on. So that's one way of controlling when the baby can be born. The other way is that despite all of these things, yet the baby is due on a long weekend. What the doctors can suggest is that you can elect to have the baby early. We can induce the pain early. There are medicines to do that. And so that the baby is not born during the weekend when the medical services are going to be very thin, right? So that's something that everybody knows. You go on a holiday, nobody will be there in the hospital, especially emergency medical care. If you need to consult a doctor because of some complication or something, nobody is going to be around, right? So you don't want to be in a hospital during this time. Okay, it's really bad time to be in a hospital. Okay, it will be staffed by skeletal staff, probably very junior, inexperienced doctors and staff, and therefore people, if they know that the baby is going to be born, they will say either induce and then have it early, or maybe go for an elective surgery, cesarean or something like that, and have the baby early. Okay, so that is why you see those gaps. Okay, so these are explanations. Now look at the Indian birthdays. Okay, so it's kind of loaded heavily in the first half, with most being born in the months of May, June and July. Okay, and there is a sudden drop off in August, September and October before it slowly picks up. Any hypothesis? Air conditioning. Marriage season, yes, marriage season. The equivalent of what happened in the US would be so our marriage season is October, November, December time, and then 9 months from that time you have this thing. Okay, any other reason? There is a even more powerful reason why this is happening. School admissions. Okay, so July 31st is the cutoff for putting the baby in the same year. Okay, so if your kid is born in August, right, you have to wait 1 more year to get admission in the first standard. Okay, correct, fudge the birthdays, right? So if the better ones actually plan this in such a way that they have their babies in May, June, July, hopefully, so that they kind of become eligible for the school that year, right? Whenever otherwise you have to wait for 1 more year, and then having this kid at home, for managing the kid for 1 more year is like a major headache, and you want to get rid of the kid as quickly as possible, right? That's what you are looking at. So they always do this thing. Okay, so that's at least the case now, but in my generation it was about getting ahead, right? You get this advantage of seniority, and in government jobs especially, because if you are younger and then you join earlier and you have more years in experience, you get promoted earlier, you become eligible for things earlier. Like for example in IIT, the housing is allotted based on when I join here. Okay, if I join 1 day earlier than somebody else, right, I will get the house than that person. Okay, they just look at when you join, that's all, because there is no other measure, simple as that, right? Seniority. Many things are based on this seniority, so it gives an edge over other people if you do things earlier. Okay, so that's this very typical Indian mentality, right? Just get ahead, right? Somehow get ahead. Okay, so now yet you can't see such a dramatic drop off, right? So what is also happening is that what Jui mentioned, right, is that a lot of people are fudging the birthdays. Okay, it used to be very common in my generation to fudge birthdays. Okay, so the kids in my class, for example, would have always 2 birthdays. One is the official school birthday, one is the real birthday, right? So the official school birthday is like just like that. There's for some record only they will keep it, but then they will have the real birthday some other time. So if you are born on August, September, the kids, when they give in my time again, getting these birth certificates and all are very easy. You just have to go and tell whatever date you want, the guy will give you a certificate, that's it. So there is no verification from the hospital or anything like that, and you can go and get it anytime also, right? Even after 5 years after the baby born, you can go and tell, okay, I have a baby at home, he is born on such and such a date. No, the guy will give you even without looking at the baby. Okay, so so they will fudge. Now how do you know that they are fudging? Okay, so here is where the interesting thing happens. Now you notice that there are multiples of 5 are darker. Okay, now in a standard statistical distribution, this cannot happen, right? It is statistically impossible to have more dense birthdays just on the multiples of 5. Okay, it just does not possible. Okay, so there is element of fudging that has happened, otherwise this will not happen. Okay, okay, so now when you compare the birthdays with the performance, right, of school performance in a year of a particular cohort, and this is how it is. So the darker red means poorer performance, the greens are the better performing students. Okay? Now why is this happening?
This seems accurate.
Same problem, right? So the kids who are born in April, May and June are the ones who are probably born in August, September and November, and they have been pushed ahead by 1 year, and therefore they are not yet ready intellectually. Okay? They are not prepared to handle the class that they have been put into. Okay? So they fall behind. So you fall behind the first year, you continue to fall behind, and the kids never catch up, and they suffer when they reach the 12th standard. Okay? So the weaker students are the youngest ones in any class, because they are not intellectually mature enough to handle the content for that particular year, right? So it's a really bad idea. So even if your kid is born in July, right, really, it's still going to be a disadvantage to your kid, okay, because he or she will be the youngest in the class. Okay? So you might as well wait 1 more year and put the kid in the next year, okay, because he'll have this 1 year advantage over the rest of the people in terms of your intellectual maturity. Okay? Because at that age, your brain is not yet fully developed, and the initial years are very important to the confidence of the kid, right? So in the first 1 or 2 years, they don't do well, and they think that they are the backbenchers and the poor performing students. They never have the confidence to get better, okay, unless something dramatically happens. Of course, in some cases, in exceptional cases, that cannot be, and that need not be true. But in most cases, because when you look at a large number like this, now this is the data from lakhs of students, right? 13-14 lakh students write the CBSE exam, so that's the kind of number we are talking about here. No, more than that, I think. So how do we also know that, you see the multiples of 5 pattern repeating here as well, right? So the multiples of 5, kids in the multiples of 5 are also the worst performing in that month. So that means that they are the ones actually who have been pushed from the August and September into June and July, right? And why is the multiple of 5 happen? Because it's just convenient. Okay, when somebody is just giving a false date, it is easy to give a date which is a multiple of 5, say 5 or 10, rather than 17 or 13, right? It's very hard to remember. Anyway, it's a fake number, so give it like a 10. Okay, 10th of July is fine. Put it. So you see that every multiple of 5 is worse than the rest.
13 doesn't seem inauspicious in India.
It doesn't seem to be inauspicious in India, right? It's not inauspicious in India. So clearly, whether your child who is born in May, June, or was pushed by the parents to, by fudging the date, it's not really good. Okay. So now there has been a lot of campaign, right, to from the government side to put their kids in the appropriate age, at their appropriate class. Okay. To tell them that it's actually not very disadvantageous to put your kid one year ahead or things like that. For every average kid, it's best that they go through the regular years in the regular pace and so on. But it has not really worked, right? Still people continue to do this because they have this mistaken notion that somehow it gives their kids some advantage, right? Now a visualization like this, when presented like this, right, makes a very powerful case, right? So if you put all young parents in a room and then make this presentation to them and tell them that this is what the data tells you, right? Your kid is that red dot in July, okay? Okay? Do you want that to happen to your kid, okay? Or do you want to be that green dot in August, okay? So then the choice will be obvious to them, right? Then they will immediately buy it, right? But I do not know of any effort to tell this story, right? I've known doctors and and counselors, come on television programs and then tell about all these things, but I don't think it has made an impact across a lot of people. Even now I come across parents, young parents who say that actually my kid was born in 22nd of April. I don't want to wait for 1 more year. Can I just push in the next year? No, don't do that, because your kid is going to be the last in the class, I mean youngest in the class, and going to be disadvantaged in many things. Even socializing is hard for them, right? And socializing is an important aspect of learning and having that kind of confidence to interact with other kids and so on. Okay, they may not be physically strong as the rest of the kids and so on. Okay, so now how many of you guys are July, June born here? Really July, June born? Okay. Okay, so you are all here, so must be exceptions to the case that I presented here. Now this is just the aggregate average of performance of children born in every date of that particular year. But this is amazing, when you present it like this, in this there is a stark difference like this to happen in a particular year, seems really very, very surprising. So this, how did they stumble upon this? I mean, they must have had a hunch about what is happening, right? So you kind of observe socially what is happening in the society, right? This is a social phenomena that there is this anxiety to put the child in the school as early as you can, and then the admission, securing admission early, getting a good school early, all these things are a lot of pressure on young parents, right? And then say that, okay, we have this data, let us see if that is true, okay? And just plotting it, and then immediately it reveals one way or the other. Yes, Shweta?
Yeah, but for example, the first data was just the
Birthdays, yeah. This is birth.
The next week I'm at marks directly. So how is it that we make these corrections?
No, this is any batch, right? So it could, I'm not saying that this is the same batch of students. It could be the same batch because along with the marks we also have the date of birth of students. Okay, so I'm not sure whether it is the same cohort of students. So this is the birthdays and this is their performance. But even if they are not, it doesn't reduce the impact of the story. So I don't know if about 7 or 8 years ago there was a major hack that happened in the CBSE results. Okay, do you know about it? 2013 or 14, I'm not sure. So those times there was there's websites where you go and enter your roll number and then you get your results, right? Was not really very secure. Okay, so there was a guy who actually. I mean, I know that guy also. In fact, I invited him to one of the classes here to talk about what he did. And so he hacked the website and then downloaded the entire cohort of all the marks he downloaded. Okay, and this data, and then he put it publicly for people to. And the reason why he did that was he wanted to analyze the performance of certain marks. So one of the things that he did was that so 35 marks is the pass mark, right? And there was nobody who got between 30 and 35 in certain subjects. Okay, so there were a lot of people 30 and then this sudden drop, nobody in 30 to 35, and then 35 onwards there are a lot of people. Okay, so what was happening there in that gap, right? So basically they were getting pushed to 35, right? If you got anywhere between 31 to 34, then you got a 35. Okay, if you got less than 30 or less than 30, then too bad, right? So effectively the pass mark was 30 and not 35, right? So that is the point that and he did a lot more analysis of that sort, and then wrote an interesting article, and then a lot of people got very upset about it. But it was not wrong for for him to do something like that or something. So just just government ignored it, and then they made the website a lot more secure the next time around. Okay, so when because this data was available, these people had access to this data and then looked at the various parameters of the data. So they found out that I mean marks were available, birthdays were available, general performance was the total percentage was available, right? So let us now see if this hypothesis that we have, some general theory that we have, is true or not. Yeah. So it's not like they went looking for a birthdays and then they made a connection here, right? Because both of them were available to them at the same time, so they did that.
Sir, also there seems to be this there is some correlation. I mean, like you mentioned, these might not even be the same people.
Yes.
But if we show both these graphs like one after another, it's kind of misleading in a way that people might think that, okay, this is the cause and this is the.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, it's strange that way because it might have some, as in even in the hand pump and
Yeah, yeah.
deaths around that.
Yeah, yeah. So you guys are doing DRM, right? Where you talk about how correlations is not equal to causation, right? Yeah, these are correlations, but very powerful correlations, right? Correlations that you cannot ignore. So you guys are familiar with the idea of correlation and causation, right? Causation means that you know certain that this causes that. Okay, A leads to B, and correlation is that there is a very good chance that because what is happening in A, it could influence what happens in B, right? So in most of the statistical analysis, it's very difficult to achieve causation, prove causation, right? So what we are happy with is to establish correlation. Okay, here there is a very high correlation between children who are born in certain months and their very poor performance in the final examination, right? So there seems to be a good correlation, since there is a correlation between them, we can deduce that probably this is what is causing this. Okay, we not causing that, I mean we cannot say that, there seems to be a good, we just say correlation, that's why the word itself correlation, there is a correlation between younger kids and poorer marks. Okay, so that's a correlation. Yeah, I mean here, but I think the correlation is very powerful here, right? It's too powerful to ignore. Huh? Okay, so that essentially concludes this lecture.